Travelers on the Omnibus occasionally touches on mature subject matter with mature language. As such, the audience discretion is advised. Hey everybody, welcome back to Travelers on the Omnibus, a field trip through nerd and pop culture. My name is James McCarthy.
My name is Ethan Skinner.
My name is Brady Davis.
I'm Jody Kite.
I was waiting for like a duel because you were the last two left. I was like, if you waited just a little bit longer, I'd got some wah 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 wah. It's very nice. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the very 13th episode. Ooh. This is either a lucky episode or an unlucky episode. We don't know yet, and we're going to find out here in a little bit. But who wants to take the reins? What's everybody been up to?
I'll start it off.
Oh.
I have just recently finished season 4, part 1 of season 4 of Stranger Things.
Oh, okay. Spoilers to everybody for like the next minute or two.
I would prefer you to not spoil because I haven't watched any of it.
Okay, just in case. Oh, I thought there was more than just one of us. Okay.
No. I very much enjoyed the season. Like, to me, it feels very different from what they did with the previous 3 seasons.
Mm-hmm. I'd have to agree with you on that.
Okay.
You see more of like of them growing up, them changing their attitudes, and them really gauging their friendships in a way almost, and it feels more natural to me than the other seasons. In my opinion, I think this is probably my favorite season.
Oh, that's a bold statement.
Interesting.
Do you think that rapport has just been building up over the years between the actual actors, and it's a natural extension of that?
Partly do that
because there's a lot of times when you see the actor that plays Dustin. I cannot remember his actual name.
Is that the one with the stutter?
Garrett or Gareth or something like that.
Yeah, he has the tooth problem.
Okay,
but you see, he has you see on his Twitter, on his Instagram, you see him actually interact with Finn Wolfhard, with Emily Bobby Brown, and all the other cast.
I think a lot of the kids are
Millie Bobby
friends.
Brown.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so they're actually all of them are growing up together.
Mm-hmm.
So you see that. You see that.
Well, yeah, I mean, you kind of saw that in the reunion they did for Harry Potter. Not just with the kids, but specifically, with the kids that became adults. Like these were your friends. Yeah. Like they literally kind of went to high school together and elementary school.
I mean, in Stranger Things, like both of the, I think season 2, the 2 kisses that happened were their first kisses were on screen, which was even more awkward, I guess.
I would imagine so.
I think that would make that scene work more. But yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But final review. Fantastic season.
I think also I want to piggyback on that because I also finished that this week. This kind of like for the last 2 quote unquote villains that we've had kind of feel a little random with the upside down and whatnot. Yeah. They really tie in what's going on.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Quite a bit.
Just everything that they've done with the villain, I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Love every aspect about it.
I need to watch it. I'm kind of gambling that my daughter who really likes Stranger Things hasn't watched it yet, so when she comes over this weekend she'll start watching it. But I have a feeling that that she'll be like halfway through the season and want to watch it, and then I'll be super confused because I don't know what's happening. But I don't know.
You're just gonna
I don't know.
Brady's like, I call my daughter the spoiler.
Yeah.
All right. Cool stuff. All right. Let's go with Trenchcoat Man.
All right.
It's Mississippi. It's 85 degrees outside, but you're wearing you are committed to that trench coat life.
It's not 85 degrees in here.
Thankfully. It is, thank God, yes.
The reason why I'm wearing it in here is because the AC is on, thankfully, but it's directly on me.
Yeah, so, the vent is right there. It's also drippy vent.
It is drippy vent, which, trench coat.
I mean, he also got a really good deal on this trench coat, didn't
he? $3.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You should have said it was 3,000. They don't know.
It's a London fog, too. So.
Oh, yeah. Shit.
Yeah. So I recently watched Doctor Strange because I'm usually like the last person to watch a Marvel film.
And now all of us have watched it.
Yeah.
So now, spoilers.
There will definitely be probably spoilers.
Yeah. Spoiler alert.
So, it was really good. I expected it to be at least as good as it was. Of course, it's Sam Raimi, so there's a lot of wacky camera angles and over the top exaggerated actions that are happening throughout.
Yeah, it was good that they let him actually direct this movie because sometimes Marvel doesn't do that.
Right. They tell you you're getting the job.
Well, Disney in particular.
Yeah.
See Gareth Edwards in Rogue One and the two gentlemen that were directing Solo before Ron Howard took over.
I would say that, again, I always go back to Guardians and even like the third Thor movie where they allow, because of the success of those films, they allow for more like taking chances and doing some,
the more loose when it comes
stuff.
to
Especially when you have magic, you have to kind of go like hard into what's happening. You can't.
Well, and specifically when there's space involved, not a whole lot of space in this thing, but also, I mean, Sam Raimi, like you don't bring in a name director like that and not have him use his like signature style for it,
right?
And I think the way they played the story out, I think he was the perfect director for this.
And you didn't have space in this, but you did have multi-dimensional travel, somewhat. And we got to see a lot more range from Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange because he got to play different versions of himself as a character, and that was really interesting to see as well. One, like especially the beginning of the film where he's like, they're in the multi-dimensional like nexus or whatnot, and they're fighting this really weird Cthulhu like monster trying to get to this book, and he's like, "Sorry, kid, but you gotta die."
Yep.
And so
What'd you think of Xochitl Gomez as America Chavez?
I thought that was really cool. I thought she did a really good job. I'm not really familiar with the character.
For me, it's like you have all of these established. Like you have Strange, you have Wanda, you have Wong, you have all of these established characters, and then on top of that, you have the first time seeing in the MCU. The Fantastic Four through Reed Richards. The first time the X-Men have shown up in the Marvel Cinematic Universe with Charles Xavier. Yep. I wish Namor had been here, but I heard they're saving him for the next Black Panther movie.
It's quite like that's the rumor that he's the main.
I'm down for that. I'm down for that. Yeah, a new character and
she holds her own.
I wish they would have given her more to do, but she's not fully like the America Chavez character that's in the comics, but
wouldn't be.
They gave her background a lot of weight.
Yeah.
And by that I mean, if you're having an origin, I wouldn't want her, and not just an origin, but an origin and like just now kind of getting into her. Like,
I'm more talking about like she's very passive in the movie. Like I still like her and I think she does very good, but I wish they would have given her a little bit more. But
she more so feels like a MacGuffin almost. Like she's what
there is that. Yeah,
there's a little bit of that.
To drive the plot.
She definitely seemed like she was the integral point of the plot. Like what she could do, like that she couldn't control her ability. A thing that I thought about after the film was going into it, or right before going into it, I thought heavily about the end of Loki because that ended with pretty much like all the dimensional structures are starting to sort of like merge and corrode and things like that. And I thought there was going to be a little bit of mention of that, but they never really touched on that, really.
No,
they've got
it's all
2 hours.
Confusing.
No, you're right.
They have 2 hours on a very confusing topic.
Like
just
trying to figure out how I don't think they fully understand how all of that
I want to talk
together.
about the mid-credits scene.
Okay.
Clea.
Yeah.
Perfect casting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to agree.
Absolute perfect casting.
Yeah, Charlize Theron. That's a good.
Also,
good pick.
Benedict Wong. Yes.
Benedict Wong is
he's awesome.
He is good in almost everything. Like his part in The Martian is just one of like an amazing ensemble, but he stands out in that one too.
I'm trying to remember what's one of the earlier things that I saw him in that I was like, oh, he was the Marco Polo show that was on Netflix.
Yeah.
He was Kubla Khan.
Oh, hell yeah.
He was really good and like
it
really,
messes me
really
when he
good
speaks in his regular accent because it's British as fuck.
Yeah. Yeah, and he was in an episode of Black Mirror that he's one of those where I'm like, "Oh, Benedict Wong's in this. This is awesome."
Right.
Like,
yeah, I have to agree. He's amazing. He's been amazing in all the Marvel stuff I've seen. So.
Yeah. And then of course Elizabeth Olsen's great.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I think she did a fantastic job. She was good with Wanda, Infinity War, and her little time in Endgame, I would say.
And WandaVision.
And WandaVision.
Yeah.
But I think she like really honed in on the character.
WandaVision's where you really see her develop as a character.
She's barely been a character until then. Like they barely had they haven't
Civil
really
War,
let
I
her.
think, did a good job with her.
Civil War a little bit.
Yeah.
Like that's the before then that's where you see her the most, but you don't see they don't give her too much to do until WandaVision, really. I think.
Brady, what was she better in, this or in Spike Lee's Old Boy?
So anyway, do you have anything else that you want to say about that?
I made him mad.
Yeah.
I made him mad.
For me, WandaVision felt like at the time when it came out that it was kicking off the next phase. I know they want to say, this movie's kicking off the phase, or no. WandaVision kicked off the phase, and I think this movie really starts it in a good direction for us to go into the next Thor movie, which unfortunately did not have a guy in the audience scream, "She's a woman."
Yeah. So here's a little anecdotal one. Take this for what you will. So I'm there in the theater. It's get your own seat. You get your own seat. Get my popcorn. I didn't get popcorn. I got nachos. You got to have chos when you're going into a movie theater if you're me. And I'm sitting there, and then the trailers start, and there's like 8 trailers. 6 of them were Top Gun Maverick.
Yep. Yes.
And then they had the Thor: Love and Thunder one. And then you see Mjolnir, and it's caught, and it's Natalie Portman looking buff as all hell. And someone about 6 rows up screams out, "She's a woman!" And then all of his popcorn spilled out of his lap and onto the floor. So thank you for that obvious statement, you popcornless fuck.
Obviously, he doesn't read comics. I will say I did have one experience that wasn't anywhere near as cool as that. So I'm sitting there in the theater, and the movie starts at 3:30. Okay. Now, I don't know. I know Brady watches a lot of films. Typically, when you go to a movie right before it shows, you go in there and they're already showing trivia and commercials for movie, newbie, and all that other stuff, right? It's 10 minutes before the movie starts. The screen is not on.
What?
Right? I'm sitting there. I give it until like 5 minutes before the film.
That's arguably the most important part about a movie.
I give it like 5 minutes before the movie starts because I'm like getting worried.
Yes.
Because at the time, there's nobody else in the theater. And so I get up, I walk to the front. I'm not dealing with the snack people because that's what I'm going to call them. I go up to the usher that's taking tickets or whatnot, and I go, "Hey, man, I just wanted to let you know that the movie, the screen's like shut off in this theater." And he looked at his little piece of paper, and he goes, "Oh, it doesn't start until 3:30. That's when the showtime is." Like, I understand that, but typically they're like 30, 45 minutes sometimes of like commercials and all this other stuff. And he looked at me and said the exact same thing. It's like a 20-year-old kid that looks like he's like, "Why are you talking to me?"
Oh yeah. He just wants to get on with his day. He really doesn't give a
He
shit.
takes tickets at a movie theater.
Yeah, I understand, but I'm like, what's going? Of course, I walk back and like it started.
Yeah.
That
is really weird because there's usually a pretty good time period.
I mean, like 5 minutes before the film starts and the projection screen is not on yet.
Yeah, that's
like,
super
what's
weird.
going on, man? Where am I at?
That kid's just waiting till payday to get his $100 check.
I have a slightly similar story. When we went to watch Demolition Man back in the mid-90s. So we're sitting there. It's like, oh, this is great. No, this is good. And then all of a sudden, just the scene with the naked girl, it was just there for a second, and then it went away. And they were like, what?
What happened?
What? And I'm like, they're spoiling the movie while you're in the theater. What the hell? It was just weird. Like, technical difficulties are just an asshole-ish thing.
When I went to go see Waterworld in the theater, I know. The film broke.
Well, I mean, it was in the theater, so you didn't know yet.
The film broke.
Yeah, well,
that's the film committing suicide.
figuratively and,
You know what? No, that's seppuku. It has lost its honor. It can only reclaim it by
during the
snapping.
scene where Costner's in the cage or whatnot, and the celluloid film broke, and we left the theater, and I wasn't mad. Because at that point, I was like, when you give up on Dennis Hopper, you know the movie's bad. I'm just saying.
Look like shit. That's my Dennis Hopper from
Yeah.
Waterworld.
You've broken all the crayons. That's my Kevin Costner.
If I have to
You should have just drank your own piss. That could be your Kevin Costner.
Oh,
impersonation
yeah.
for that.
if I can chime in with my own movie theater experience.
Sure.
I kind of want to say no, but no,
You
go for
can.
it. I can, but go for it.
I went to go see Doctor Strange the first time with my brother, and like all the trailers go by and the opening credits start. We see Doctor Strange and America Chavez running. We all of a sudden the fire alarm lights start to go off, and no one knows what's going on, and so everyone's like looking at each other. My brother goes out into the hallway to ask what's happening. He runs back and says, "There's a fire starting," and so all of us like calmly leave the movie theater. There's a good 40, 50 of us standing outside of the Grand, and fire trucks pull up. Apparently there was no fire at all.
Wow, that's awesome.
Just some faulty wiring that caused all the fire alarms to go off.
There
That
you
makes
go.
you feel well.
Did they give you a refund on your ticket?
Oh, I demanded one
Oh, well,
There you
I
go.
hope.
because I had orientation.
I
that
really,
same day.
yes, you did. Yes, you did. No, I would love to see your demanding voice. Like it was, like, I was told that I could have a movie experience, and I did not. You will give me my money post haste,
sir.
sir. Yes, if you can. Real quick for the passengers, what are some of your most memorable at non-movie cinema experiences? Let us know at travelersontheomnibus@gmail.com, and we might read it for passenger feedback.
Yeah, I've got one more, but I'm not going to share it right now.
Yeah.
There you go. Thanks, Brady. What you been up to?
Oh, okay. So, started reading a new book. Well, it's a new for me. It's not a new book. I think it's about a year or two old. By the name of Zoe Punches the Future in the Dick. It's a book written by Jason Pargent. He was pretty high up with the Cracked website.
I was literally about to ask, was he a cracked writer?
Yeah, he was a
Because this
cracked
sounds
writer.
like it.
He also has written books such as John Dies at the End, which was made into a movie. Also, this book is full of spiders. Seriously, dude, don't open it. He has a new book coming out called If You're Reading This, You're in the Wrong Universe. So you kind of get the humor of everything. He's been on a lot of podcasts that I listen to because I listen to a lot of like ex-cracked people, their podcasts. And this book takes place in the future. The main character is named Zoe Ash. She's like the head of a criminal organization in this like almost lawless town, city really. And somebody's trying to kill her. It's pretty good so far. I like the writing. It's a very interesting book, but yeah, Zoe punches the future in the dick.
Sounds like an awesome title.
It's good so far. It's like he has two series. He has the Zoe Ash series, and then he has the John Dies at the End series. So they're going back and forth. But and the way he does that, like they're a series, but like he always says like this is actually like the second book in the series. The first book is called Futuristic Violence and Fancy Suits, I believe. But he said like I write these to where you don't have to read the previous one. You can read them in any order that you want.
Okay.
But just realize that so like, hey, if you read an earlier one and then you skip to a later one and there was a character in this earlier one that's not in this later one, maybe don't get too attached to them or something like that. But he's like, you don't have to read them in any order. And so far that seems very true. Mm-hmm. That's good. The other thing that happened recently was I watched the trailer for the Sandman TV show that's coming out on Netflix on August 5th. Has anybody else watched that?
I have not seen the trailer. I didn't know the trailer was out.
It came out very recently, like in the last couple of days.
Would you mind describing what it is for those that don't know?
We only have forever.
Well, okay. Well, if I do, Neil Gaiman, the guy who
I want you to fucking recognize what Jody just said, and you pay him his fucking propers for that, because that was fucking genius.
yeah.
God,
I'm
damn
actually
it.
cosplaying as John Constantine Hellblazer.
Yeah. Well, the author of the comic book, it was originally based on comic book, and the author of the comic book, Neil Gaiman, was once asked this question, what is Sandman about? And he said, Sandman is about the Lord of Dreams realizes that he must change or die, and he makes his choice. It's basically stars the the personification of the idea of dreams. Sometimes he's called Dream, sometimes he's called Morpheus. And this this first season is going to be about him. He gets captured for a very long time, and it's most of this season is going to be him escaping and then getting back his objects of power, and he has to do a lot of things to do that. But but that's just like the first volume of the comic. I think it actually goes through the first 2 volumes. It's got horror stuff. There's like fantasy stuff.
There's a ton of Greek pantheon and other pantheons.
Like it goes in, like there's a whole side thing with Shakespeare.
Like Midsummer Night's Dream is one of the graphic novels.
Yeah, it actually won an award. It's like a really good story. But it's like it's very wide ranging. Like there's a lot of things going on, but it follows the character of Dream as he rules over this place called the Dreaming, which is where whenever you dream, this is where you go to experience those dreams and those nightmares and all of that. But it's gonna be looks like it's gonna be very, very good. I'm very, very excited about it. We find like they've been teasing it for a very long time.
Yeah, it was probably COVID, like slow production. I
probably.
Imagine.
But they finally have a date, August 5th. It's going to come out on Netflix, so that's going to be something that I'm super
Ethan, you would
looking
probably
forward to.
dig the graphic novels.
Yeah,
I'm going to tell you, the artwork also is equal to the writing of it. I mean, it's a beautiful. I have most of them. Death is a pretty cool character.
Dream is actually the part of this group called the Endless, which they're like above gods. They're all like the personification of different things that come about because of sentient life. There's dream, there's death, there's destiny, desire, despair, destruction, and delirium.
Sounds like a very
Drumsticks. Delicious drumsticks.
Delicious. They all start with a D.
I do like Drumsticks, the ice cream cone.
It has a really nice concept that in my mind I would find myself enjoying.
Yeah. It goes from like fantasy. There's not to just there's straight up horror.
It is super esoteric.
Yeah, there's sometimes there's a lot of esoteric things. There's one story that's all about cats.
It can be abstract at times too, very abstract.
Like he goes to hell and faces off against Lucifer. Like it's really it's definitely worth. I think it's going to be a good show. All the casting is really, really cool. I would say that I'm looking forward to that, and I would strongly suggest anybody listening to this to read the comics and also watch the show when it comes out.
Anytime I'm about to cancel Netflix, they do some shit like this.
Yeah, that's kind of like their whole deal.
So there's this company.
Hey Jay,
It's called World Wrestling Entertainment. They do wrestling and sports entertainment, and they do this thing on this past Sunday, and it's called Hell in a Cell. I could run down every match, but really it's the main event, though I will say that the women put on a very good match, and if it wasn't for the fact that it was a triple threat, I would have liked it, but I hate all multi-man matches. That is the whole thing. By the way, welcome to Whiskey and Wrestling West Coast. This is a sub-podcast of our podcast, which is an ape on another podcast, which we'll be plugging later. Hell in a Cell. Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes comes out, and he looks like he had wine spill all inside his right tit. That was not what happened. He ripped his pectoral muscle almost completely off the bone, and he said, "Fuck it," and he wrestled.
This was before the match.
Before anything happened.
Like a couple of days before the match.
Yes,
I think.
he started out, I think, with a small tear, and then didn't realize it, and then during lifting weights, he just ripped it right out. Because the man is intense as all fuck. So intense that he said, "No, I don't need a tit. I'll just go straight in and wrestle you. Let's fucking do it. Let's just fucking go." And they did. I am of two minds, and those minds are personified as wolves. One wolf is, this is the most compelling Hell in a Cell match since Mankind Undertaker. And the other wolf is, how dare them do this at all, because this sets a horrible precedent that if you risk your life and limb and livelihood and it works, you're going to be a lot better. And when those two wolves are fighting, it's whichever one I want to feed at that moment that ends up winning that fight. This is the most torn I've been, and I apologize, that was a small pun, unintentional. But this is one where I really just like in the moment and watching it's like this is compelling. This man is literally working with half a chest, and he's pulling off things in that ring that, like, if he had done this in AEW, we'd be booing him.
Yeah.
Like, people
more
would
than
be
likely.
booing him. It's just insane to me how the change in companies, he has gone from the least desirable anything almost in that company with the way the fans treated him to like the most over wrestler in the WWE.
You know, for a little history lesson, back in the day, you would work through injuries because if you didn't, you would lose your spot. And it was usually frowned upon. If you could work through it, it was frowned upon for you to pick your bags and go home. Like, people work through that all the way up until like the mid 2000s. I really want to say for a long
It's really
time.
a certain
I would argue that in the indies, that's still the mentality.
Yes.
Probably.
I think that the corporate nature of the higher end, like you can't. They're looked at as assets. It's not just a people thing, and if an asset has to go on the shelf, then we're not being able to monetize that asset.
Independent contractors.
Like the concern that you would want to have is this is a human being and he is taking his body past the limits. Again, it's what makes it compelling, but it's also what makes it because now someone sees this and goes, well, if I've got a torn ACL, I need to be out running. I need to be out running, jumping, and like going off the top turnbuckle. If I've got a concussion, well, I better lie to them in the concussion. No, I'm fine. I can perfectly count clearly 1, 5, 4, 8, 3, 2.
Anybody else under the card that would have done this would have like gotten a real bad reprimand for doing it.
I don't think they would have been allowed.
No.
Because this was the main event, because this is someone they've put so much stock into, I think that's what. And again, the message is going out there that he had ripped it so completely off that there was nothing more he could do to it. I'm of the opinion that your musculature, your skeletal structure, everything in your body is connected to everything else in some way, shape, or form. And if you make one super worse, the rest are going to get dragged down with it. I'm of two minds.
Right.
This is one of the most compelling things that I am vested in versus I am disgusted that this thing happened, and depending on what time of day you catch me, ultimately I guess it comes down to Cody Runnels is capable of making his own decisions.
Yeah.
I don't believe at any point the company said you have to do this match.
Oh, no.
In fact, I would think they
There
said
are
they
probably
would have said
plenty that were like, you don't have to go out there.
yeah, you don't have to do this. And I think he wanted to do that because I do believe he loves the sport of wrestling. I do believe he loves the theatrics, the pageantry, and being a part of that and being part of it at the very top of it. So ultimately, I think I will lay on this was exceptional, but man, I've got worries.
Yeah.
I just do.
Me not having seen the match, so I can't fully like say, but my general thought of like I don't like people working through injuries. I don't, especially when like this isn't as serious. Well, this is serious in a different way, but like concussions, I really like that's a problem. I don't like people working through that. The idea of that, I don't like seeing that, and that's why I don't like seeing like open face chair shots or anything like that. I don't like people working through that, and I feel like this does set that precedent to where he took that chance and it really paid off. So maybe I need to say that I'm not as hurt as I really am, so I can work through.
Right. Like if you have an underlying thing that you can kind of get away with, like making it look like you're not too injured and still go out there, and then something really bad happens because of it.
That really worries me. I've been that way since a certain wrestler did horrible things because he got concussed way too many fucking times and it ate at his brain.
We can say it.
Yeah. I don't feel like it because I don't particularly want to. You can say it. I don't like.
I will, like the Chris Benoit tragedy.
Yeah.
Like at what point, like the CTE part, like when we're talking about brain versus musculature.
This is a little bit different.
It's a different bit of a story, but it does kind of bring up the thing. How far are you willing to be pushed to be the best? Now, again, these are grown men and women. They have their ability to make this decision for themselves. And if the decision isn't forced upon them when they shouldn't be, they have that right, but man, you're setting up people behind to have to go, well, if he did that, then I have to do this.
Well, I remember not super long, a few years back when Becky got her face crushed by Jax, where she wanted to perform immediately after it happened, but they were like, no.
Right, because I think there was issues with her, like her orbital bone was cracked, and also
her nose was broken,
and she was in concussion protocol.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd like to see these people live past
safe.
I'd like to see them live past 50.
Yeah, I don't want people being, like a lot of the old timers are now, wheeled out where they're barely able to do anything.
The mortality rate for wrestlers is still really bad.
Yeah, and I want that to change. And
I do too.
While yes, of course, like concussions are different than having a pectoral muscle torn, but it does set that precedent to where maybe somebody has a concussion or they're mildly concussed, and they say, well, no, I'm just going to work through it. I'm going to try and fool everybody and make them think that it's not serious.
If you want to see an example of someone working through a concussion, mainly just because I guess of sheer willpower, is the Mankind Undertaker Hell in a Cell match.
But again, that's another one. Like, again, the two minds of it, especially at the time, I was more, this is amazing. Like the sheer human will and resilience to be able to power through this and still perform.
The man fell 12 feet twice.
Yeah.
The second one he wasn't even expecting. So
the second one was worse because there was no buffer for it. He landed directly in the ring, and if it wasn't for, I guess, his shape, size, or whatnot, he would have died immediately.
Well, it was luck too, because he even writes in his book, if I had gotten up as high as I usually did for his choke slams, I would have landed on my head and neck.
Right.
And you probably aren't reading this book right now.
Right.
And instead, like, again, it was the lowest he ever came out, and it probably saved his life.
Yeah. And he doesn't remember parts of those matches.
Yeah.
He's
out. Said that he has had to watch the match over and over again to finally piece it together.
Right.
That's crazy. That's absolutely, like, I love Mick Foley to death. I 100% love Mick Foley to death. And again, there's a part of me that will always be like, what he gave up that night, he can never get back. And he gave that to us as fans. He gave it to his company that paid him. And he gave it, honestly, to himself for his legacy. Yeah. And I think there's something to be said about how compelling that is. It's just, you also don't want to see Mick Foley dead.
Yeah.
Very true.
So, sorry for being a downer on that last part, ladies and gentlemen. But overall, I think it was a very good pay-per-view. Again, I highly recommend get one of our Peacock logins and watch that match. Like, watch it, because it is compelling.
From what I've seen, it was very, very good.
Yeah. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen. So, thank you for listening to us on whatever podcasting device you have decided for. Please tell your friends about it and let them know that we are available on Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. We are working on Stitcher. We might be able to get us on Stitcher this week. I'm hoping, if I'm understanding how all this stuff's working out. No passenger feedback this week. So I got some Chinese food earlier, and I ate all that Chinese food, except I haven't eaten the fortune cookie, and so the fortune cookie will be our passenger feedback for this week.
Awesome.
All right. You sound so enthusiastic, Brady.
Oh,
I really need.
Awesome.
There we go. Okay.
I love paper telling me how I'm feeling.
He's bought in. Here we go.
Make sure you read out the lucky numbers too.
Yes.
How about another fortune? The fortune's on the other side, but I read this one, so I have to wait for another fortune. So
okay.
I'm just gonna eat my cookie in peace. And if you want to leave passenger feedback, again, travelers on the omnibus, all one word, at gmail.com. Travelers on the omnibus at gmail.com. I'm going to sit back because I don't think in any way, shape, or form any conflict is going to happen in this episode.
Not at all.
I mean,
in fact, conflicts can be avoided fully. Sometimes you're wrong. Sometimes you're right.
I like how you looked straight at me when you said, sometimes you're wrong. I say very, very passive aggressive. Very good job there. I like that. But I'm going to lean back again with my fortune cookie.
I will say, now that we were talking about movies, I remembered I did get into like an old movie binge, and Disney Plus, they have the like the Star Wars trilogy, the original, the prequel, and the other one that we don't mention. And I still gotta say, I think the prequels still hold up.
You are absolutely insane. The prequels have never held up.
Right. Why do you say that though?
Because they're bad.
They're not bad though.
They are bad.
They're not.
They are.
They're not.
They are.
They're not. They're
Bus fight! Bus fight! Bus fight! Bus fight! Bus fight! Bus fight!
Who is wrong? Who is right? Looks like it's gonna be a bus fight. A bus fight!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our first ever bus fight. A debate taking place on a bus never happens. There are only fights. So, ladies and gentlemen, in the one corner, we have Brady, don't call me Jar Jar Davis, versus Ethan, Jabba the Slut Skinner.
Jesus Christ.
I thought you were going to say not the Ewok Skinner, because he's definitely not the Ewok.
He's not a cannibal, goddammit, or we would have all been dead years ago. So they have, unbeknownst to us, they've actually presented with open. Why? Don't look at the wall.
You were like.
Dude, you messed it up.
I'm sorry.
I'm leaving this in, or I'm gonna make it a flat tire. I ain't figured out yet.
Jesus. I didn't know I was going to fuck you up on that. I
They
apologize.
prepared opening. You're supposed to be focusing on him. This is a bus fight. Do you want to look away when somebody's fighting you on a bus? No. It's like, oh, that's beautiful scenery outside on the bus while he's caving your skull in with a 40 ounce. Preferably Old English.
Who's going to be the master debater?
You haven't been on a Greyhound bus in a while.
No,
I
I
have.
have not.
The back row, it don't exist.
Stinky.
It's literally the shadow realm where all Yu-Gi-Oh cards end up. It's just the way it is.
God.
So before we go any further afield, they have prepared opening statements, and myself and Jody are going to be asking questions after those opening statements. No interruptions, gentlemen. No hitting below the belt. Actually, no, hit below the belt, but metaphorically. And above all else, save your honor. Ladies and gentlemen, presenting bus fight number 1, Age Before Beauty. Brady, you started out.
Okay, sure. All right. So the first thing that I want to talk about is that I am not here to drag anyone for liking the prequels. You can like what you like. It's fine. You're not a bad person for liking them. I'm also not here to talk about how the prequels ruined Star Wars or my childhood. The originals still exist. All my memories still exist for the originals. I can go back and watch them at any time, although they, depending on where you watch them, they will be a little bit different than you remember. But you know, that's another debate at another time. I'm not even here to argue that the sequel trilogy is better or worse. I'm just here to argue that the prequels are not great. I want to tell a little story real quick. So, even though we a little look behind the curtain, even though we said, we acted like this was all spur of the moment, well, this is not. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to watch the prequel so I can give them an honest outlook. So I did. And I was taking notes and everything. I made it through the first one, and I was like, on Monday, and I was like, I can't go to the second one. I can't go to the second one in the same day. So I went and watched another movie, a weird Polish movie about mermaids. And I was much happier than when I was watching the episode 1. So the next day I pop in episode 2, Attack of the Clones, start watching it. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm doing okay. I'm doing fine. I get to the point where Anakin is whining about killing women and children. And I pause it, and I look at my phone, and it says it's 8:00. And I look at the time left on it, and it says there's an hour left. And I had what can be described as a mental breakdown. I just kept saying, no, there's a fucking hour. There's an hour left in this. I can't do this. I cannot watch this movie anymore. I cannot go to the next fucking movie. I quit. No one can make me finish this movie. I don't have to do this. I do not have to torture myself for this fucking podcast. Fuck this. And then I turned it off and watched The Northman, and it was much happier than I was previously. So that's my experience trying to rewatch the prequels and give them an honest look. So I have notes on a movie and a half. I had to do the rest from memory. So yeah, that's my opening statement.
Ethan, whenever you're ready. you need to hold on? Break. Do you need to breathe for a second?
No. I was not expecting a somewhat comedic value of your opening statement.
Thank you.
Now I have to wonder if I'm keeping that one in too.
None of that was fake. That was all real.
Oh, that was
really
genuine.
happened.
That was genuine.
I don't know. Yeah, there you go.
The original Star Wars trilogy, beginning with Star Wars A New Hope, came out in 1977. To my knowledge, the three of us were born or were alive during this time to experience this firsthand. I did not have such pleasantries. I grew up with the original prequels. Like what Brady said, I have memories of myself, my brother, and my father sitting on the couch and watching the original three, watching Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan find Anakin and help him out of his slavery predicament with the pod race. We see the origin story of how this innocent child could become the future evil that we experienced in the original trilogy. We see how things in the prequels lead up to events that happen in the original trilogy. We see possibly two of the greatest, in my opinion, fight sequences in the Star Wars series as a whole, with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan versus Darth Maul, and with Anakin versus Obi-Wan in Duel of the Fates. Those two scenes stand out very vividly in my memories, and just watching myself, my brother, my father, just experiencing these movies as a whole. That I hold them dearly to myself. So everything that I hold is more so comes from an emotional standpoint, but at the same time, these movies are not bad. They are good.
All right. So that is our opening statements from the two fighters. It is now time for questions. Jody, do you have a question for one or both?
So I have a question for Ethan.
All right.
Okay.
Question for Ethan.
So Ethan, I enjoyed your opening statement, and I understand your emotional attachment, nostalgic more towards the sharing the film experience with your family. Now, if you can subjectively take that part of the experience out of watching the original, not the original, but the prequel trilogy, if you take out the nostalgia of being there with your family, because that experience can happen with a lot of films that are not necessarily good per se. So what would your analogy be in that regard?
Jody, just so I have it, if you take out the connection with your family to this, how would that, in your opinion, change your opinion of the
Pretty much.
prequels?
That's pretty much what I'm getting to. Yes, thank you, Jay.
I would say my opinion would stay the same. Yes, the prequels have very spotty parts in it, with Anakin and Padme's interactions with each other on Tatooine. Whenever Anakin talks about what he did there, the way he acted towards the slave holders, and that awful dialogue of "I hate sand." Yes, the prequels have their faults, but at the same time, we cannot have those faults cloud judgment over the entirety of it. With Phantom Menace, with Attack of the Clones, with
Revenge of the Sith.
Revenge of the Sith, yes.
If I may. So what you're saying is that you do admit that there are parts that are lower quality, but taking them as a whole, the entirety of it is an overall good.
I mean,
am I speaking right, or am I characterizing you incorrectly? Please let me know.
That is correct. I mean, name one movie that does not have a single fault in it, and I can guarantee you there is no movie with such.
Psycho.
Empire Strikes Back.
Well, y'all just jumped the gun.
The Godfather.
The Godfather is a faulted movie, and overhyped. It's a good movie, but there are problems with
You're
it.
so fucking
If I could be serious,
Another bus fight for another day.
I will say Stalag 17.
But
That's a pull from the deep space right there. Ethan, go back to it, brother.
But taking in all these faults that the prequels do have, I'm not denying that they don't have them. They do not cloud my judgment as whether or not they are good or not.
All right. So, question for Brady.
If I could,
oh, you want to rebut that?
real
Go
quick.
for it. Go for it.
I think in today's society, there's been a big trying to reappraise things and that we have nostalgia for, and trying to say like, oh, they're good, because I feel like we're getting to this point in society in a lot of ways, especially with like nerd and pop culture, where we're thinking like, oh, if we like something, it has to be good. It's okay to like things that are objectively bad. Just because you like it and you have nostalgia for it does not mean that it is good. And movies can be objectively bad. I like several movies that are objectively bad, but I still get enjoyment out of them. And that's the most important thing. Like, we don't have to justify our liking of them. You know, it's okay. I think it's best to get into a way of thinking of, you know, these things are bad, but I can still like them. So I think that's the big thing that's really clouding everybody's judgment when it comes to like the reappraisal of some of these things that were always thought of as bad. And there are incredible flaws with the prequel trilogy that are not seen in the original trilogy, I would argue. The original trilogy is not perfect, but also the phenomenon of Star Wars wouldn't have happened without that original trilogy. So yeah.
All right. So, question for Brady.
Yes.
I know you mentioned it in your preamble and your opening statement that we weren't going to talk about this. However, I legitimately do. So we live in a post-sequel world. Mm-hmm. We have seen episodes 7, 8, and 9. Mm-hmm. I believe objectively that 7 is okay. 8 and 9 are bad films. I respect what 8 tried to do. 9 is garbage. Mm-hmm. While growing up for me at least, in my early 20s to my early 30s, I did not have a world where to my mid 30s, excuse me, so about a 15-year time. I did not live in a world where we had the sequels. All we had were the prequels. We had a data point that was uncomparable to almost anything else except the original sequels. Mm-hmm. Does the existence of, at the best, mediocre sequels in some way, shape, or form shine a better light on the prequels?
In a way, yes, maybe, but I don't think it makes them retroactively good. They still have all the same problems. It's just we feel so viscerally about these newer films because they are the newer thing that we're looking back and trying to say, well, you know, these things back here weren't that bad. When no, they were still that bad. It's just these are also bad, and also in a myriad of different ways they're bad. You know, you could say lack of focus or you know, the corporatization of this, especially when, you know, at the very least, you know, George Lucas was all about that singular vision, auteur theory build. Ooh, cannot say that word. Auteur theory bullshit. Mm-hmm. But the sequel trilogy has has problems in a different way, but the prequels still have their own problems, but that doesn't make them good. Just because you have two bad things and one that's kind of a fresher wound, I would say, doesn't mean that the old scar that you have didn't happen, like that it wasn't actually a negative thing.
All right. Ethan, do you have any rebuttal to that?
Actually, no.
Uh-huh.
I can respect his opinion when it comes to that specific scenario. Like, yes, 7, 8, and 9, they are the worst ranking when it comes to all three trilogies. If someone believes that just because this one is worse, that the other ones still aren't good, I can respect their decision on that.
All right. Jody, do you have a question for them?
No, I was hoping, since we have so many notes here, that we were going to continue on any more points that maybe Brady or Ethan wanted to make.
I had one more question for Ethan.
Okay, go
Ethan, I would like to, and I apologize for this, but I'm kind of asking you in a way to argue for a negative. I want you to strip everything Star Wars out of this. Character names, locations, themes, but not so much themes. I want you to picture that trilogy as nondescript science fiction adventure. Does that take away from the quality of the product that has been put forward?
So if I'm understanding it, imagine Star Wars without the namesake characters, without the namesake concepts. Like they're not lightsabers. The Force doesn't exist. There's some other thing.
It's some sort of pseudo magical scientific kind of thing.
No
like,
Skywalker legacy.
Yeah, the name Darth Vader doesn't appear anywhere. The script is the exact same, except names and places are different names and don't take place in a galaxy far, far away. Does that take away from that movie trilogy?
I honestly don't know, because whenever I think of Star Wars, I think of I think of the namesake weapon that's used, the lightsaber. I think of the namesake. I think of the Force, everything that all the Jedi's used. I think of Darth Vader. I cannot think of any concept that's remotely similar to Star Wars without immediately thinking that, oh, it's just a Star Wars knockoff.
That's a very fair answer to that, because I am asking you to strip a whole bunch of the, in my opinion, it goes deeper than the paint, but that was what I was kind of asking for there. Would you then say that the theme and the whole Star Wars veneer is irremovable from those three movies?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Just to back up on that, like, I would argue that's most movies. Like, you can't strip away that extra thing there. But I do believe that structurally, like on a basic writing, not even with dialogue, because the dialogue through all three of the movies is not great. Like, structurally, they're bad. Like, for example, who's the protagonist in episode 1?
Are you asking me or are you asking
Anybody. Who's the protagonist in episode 1?
I legitimately argue that it is Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Obi-Wan Kenobi, who disappears halfway through the movie
Yes.
and is barely used.
Yes.
Okay.
I do believe it is Obi-Wan Kenobi, because he has to take on a mantle of something that, as a Jedi, he is not trained for.
But he never moves the story forward. He's just there as the story happens.
That is a form of sort of storytelling where the protagonist just kind of no. You may not
That's
like
the point
it.
of a protagonist is to be the central focal point of the movie and to move the plot forward. That's what the definition of protagonist is.
I disagree with you. I think there is a form of storytelling where the protagonist pretty much experiences these things as they're happening to him, and we focus on how he experiences that. I think just to say that he's driving the plot forward, or you didn't say that. My apologies. I respect, but the fact that he drives the plot forward, I don't agree with that. I believe that other things can drive the plot forward, and he is there experiencing those and how we relate to that.
I think that definition of protagonist can work, but the problem is Star Wars is a story out as a whole that is so tied to the hero's journey and the idea of the monomyth and all of that stuff, that's not the type of protagonist that George Lucas writes in his movies.
I would agree with the original. I don't necessarily agree with the prequels, because, and what I will say, at a disadvantage that the prequels had is that we knew where things had to go. Anakin's got to get in the suit. Qui-Gon's got to be Qui-Gon. Good Lord. Obi-Wan's got to be out in the desert. We got a farm. We got a place called Tatooine. Got all this, and these two kids have got to be born. Who is that? There's a lot of stuff that we know ends up happening. So I think one of the reasons why I think this is more of like a going down the river and experiencing the things as you're coming down the river. I think that's more of the way I look at least episode 1. And I would even argue to a greater extent episodes 2 and 3. Who is the protagonist of 3? Is it Anakin or is it Obi-Wan? Or is it neither?
That could be argued that there's
Are these
not really one in there.
Are these
that
protagonists?
is a problem. It's very unfocused, and I think structurally there really isn't a protagonist in episode 1 especially. It's because it's all over the place.
I would definitely be willing to stipulate that the focus there is on the things that we know are going to happen. That's where the focus is in those movies. We have to have Anakin. We have to there's all these things that have to happen.
Structurally, I think is a problem because
if it's,
nobody if all you're worried about with a story is telling, okay, this is where this came from and this is where this came from. That's the type of prequel that nobody gives a shit about.
If it's outside, but let's say strip Star Wars from it. Is it a chance that type of storytelling is something that doesn't have the weight of Star Wars on it? Does that make that series of movies better?
I think it would still be a very boring, unfocused movie without all of that because of the structural problems, because there is no real protagonist, because it is all based on taxation and trade routes. Like the first goddamn thing of the crawl talks about taxation. Turmoil has engulfed the Galactic Republic. The taxation of trade routes to outlying star systems is in dispute. That is the most boring ass line that I've ever heard, because that's what this is all central of in the first one. Like, it's super fucking boring.
Okay. Ethan, you wanted to rebut.
Yeah.
I wanted to rebut against a statement that you made regarding Obi-Wan as the protagonist. I do not believe Obi-Wan is the mainstay protagonist in episode 1. I think that more so falls on Qui-Gon, because we see Qui-Gon being the Jedi Master for Obi-Wan, because he's still learning. He's still fresh, learning everything about the Jedi way. He's still I don't believe he's a Grand Master at that point. And we see Qui-Gon more so take the role of wanting to take Anakin in and wanting to advocating for him to become a Padawan. That's the word I was thinking of. Mm-hmm. And whenever we see Qui-Gon fall to Darth Maul, we then see Obi-Wan pick up the mantle with Qui-Gon's parting words. At that point, that's when we see Obi-Wan kind of take the responsibility of carrying his master's legacy with him. So no, I do not believe Obi-Wan is the main protagonist in episode 1.
Okay. Jody, you had a point that I believe you wanted to get in.
The only thing I was going to say is that not defending the prequels at any stretch of the imagination, because I'm not a fan. There are certain movies that have ensemble casts where there is no clear focused protagonist. But one thing I was going to who is the underlying antagonist in that? Is it Darth Maul in the first film, in the first prequel film?
No,
I guess it's technically Sidious, but he's mostly.
But he's an underlying.
He's more so pulling the strings from behind the scenes.
Yeah, and they make it very obvious about that, so it makes the Trade Federation also kind of toothless.
Well, it kind of mirrors some stuff that you can kind of see in Lucas's productions and writings. Like if you look at least the original trilogy of Indiana Jones, you always have the main bad guy, the secondary bad guy, and the muscle. And in this, I mean, I think you can argue, and two of these you might be able to flip. The main bad guy is Sidious. The secondary bad guy is either the Trade Federation itself or it's Maul, and then the muscle is either, of the two that are left, it's either Maul or the Trade Federation, because you have them with their armies on the planet, so they could be a muscle in kind of a grander sense, and Maul is just the secondary bad guy making sure everything's running, or Maul is the muscle, and the true kind of policy driving of what's going on there happens through the Federation.
But here's the thing, though. It's Palpatine because we know it's Palpatine, right? We know it because we've seen the original trilogy. So not knowing that, if you go into this movie blind, and it's the first one you've seen as a 12-year-old, 15-year-old, whatever, you're not going to look at him as Darth Sidious or Palpatine. You don't know who the protagonist is in that film.
The antagonist.
I meant the antagonist.
Yeah. Okay.
Going to what I was thinking when I first experienced this movie, I knew that there was some kind of behind the scenes string pulling going on. Mm-hmm. But when I thought of the antagonist, I thought it was Darth Maul, because he was more so making sure everything was going according to plan. He was making sure that everything was going right. When he sees that two Jedis are on Tatooine, that's immediate red flags for Sidious. Sidious says, "Go deal with them. You got it, boss."
And it's through the Trade Federation, though. I think they're really the antagonists in the.
I think that they're supposed to be,
Right.
but it's just they are constantly shown to be very ineffective and just constantly having to call Sidious to ask what the hell do we do, because we don't know what the fuck is going on. Also, there's some bad stereotypes there. There's some bad stereotypes all through this original. Like you could argue with the original trilogy. There's some stuff, but it's really bad in this. The way that the Trade Federation guys talk, Watto having some like weird stereotypes, the Tusken Raiders having some weird stereotypes. Like it's all like yeah. So there's that, but like the way that they do some of these, like I said, it's like the structure of it is like not great.
I would like to hear Ethan defend the dialogue choices from Attack of the Clones. Go.
The dialogue choices, I would argue, from a lot of the trilogy.
I think 2 gets a lot of focus.
2 gets a lot of
especially.
focus, but there's some really bad stuff
There
in
are
1 as well.
Yeah, I know you specifically want me to defend. I hate sand. I know that's what you want me to hear, but
Not necessarily.
but like I said,
Any of Anakin's dialogue is really bad.
yeah, just to me, what I believe, the actor that portrayed Anakin, Christian Henderson,
Hayden
Christensen. I had the name swapped.
Yeah.
Look at me. I don't believe he had any prior acting before this, to my knowledge.
I think he had, and I apologize for interjecting here. You could have had Sir Laurence Olivier in there, and he can't make those lines work.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
Lucas wanted those lines delivered the way they were
And
delivered.
specifically,
direction-
those words, that delivery.
The direction is not great, because you have good actors like Natalie Portman, who she is also rewatch those first 2 movies at least. Like I said, I didn't make it to the 3rd movie, but her dialogue choices in there are really bad, and she is.
Are they choices? I don't think they're choices. I think she was mandated to say what she was saying.
Well, yeah, by dialogue choices, I mean the dialogue choices not necessarily by her, but by Lucas.
Yeah.
Her, like, his direction is bad, really bad, because I think he's telling these people, and you have people who are super, super, super charismatic, like Ewan McGregor, who can make them not as bad, but still not phenomenal. Like, they're not. Ewan McGregor is good, but he's not like giving like Alec Guinness level lines. Even though I think he's doing very, very good. He's one of the best actors acting. He's not necessarily like, when I say the best actor, I mean in the movies,
prequels.
in the prequels.
Yeah.
Not necessarily overall. You could argue that whatever. I like Ewan McGregor. I'm not saying that he's bad or anything, but he's pulling out better things than what other people who are also really good actors are doing.
And I'm
in the prequels.
And I'm not saying the entire fault is to Hayden Christensen. George Lucas, he was notorious for cutting a lot of great lines in the script, and then he told the actors, "No, I want you to say this like this. I want you to put emphasis on sand." No, there was a picture I saw just scrolling on Facebook from what George Lucas wanted Padme to say versus what the original script had intended. The original script was far better than the 2 sentences that Lucas had her say. There are many issues regarding script changes in the prequels. I'm not denying that.
And I think this gets to the problem of the prequels, even though I will say, like, we're really focusing more on 1 and 2, because 3 is an okay movie. I think it's not the best, but it's not. But of the 3, it's definitely the best. The problem is that if you look at all of like the behind the scenes stuff of the original trilogy, there's a lot of Lucas having these ideas and coming up with things, and then somebody else going, hold on, let's refine these ideas. This original idea, there's a spark of something good in here, but let's refine it a little bit because this original idea is kind of shit. So let's kind of work with that. And and then eventually continuing to work, and like also with like the editing and everything. Like I know at least in the first one, his ex, I think she's now deceased, wife, did a lot of that editing. So he had a lot of these people helping him, where he had this singular vision, but he had people to help him. But by the time he gets to this prequel trilogy, his name is so big that there's nobody who can tell him no. He's not this, indie director
I think the statement
guy.
better is it's not that he had people to help him. He had people to say,
Yes.
no, I don't think this works.
Yeah, that's really what I mean.
And they had the debate there. Whereas, yeah, you're right. There's this whole thing. It's like it all funnels through him, and he's
like
the
by the
final
time he
gatekeeper.
gets to this prequel trilogy, it's like he was behind the scenes a lot. He didn't direct Empire Strikes Back. He didn't direct Return of the Jedi, but he made damn sure that he directed all three of these, even though he's an okay director. And seeing these movies, you could argue, is not a great director. So he didn't have anybody to refine these ideas. So when he had an idea, he just went with it. Like, we haven't talked about it, and I've avoided it a little bit because it is a low hanging fruit, I think. But like, he thought Jar Jar Binks was the greatest idea. He thought he was going, like, children were going to just fucking love Jar Jar Binks, and they were going, like, if he was like that this was going to be the huge thing, and it wasn't great. Now, do I think that like the actor should have gotten so many death threats that he considered committing suicide? Hell no, that's terrible. But the character in itself is not great. Now, that's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to like harp on that because like I said, I feel that is a low hanging fruit. Although the character is not great and is very annoying.
And no, like George Lucas, he made a lot of decisions that otherwise, in my opinion, nowadays, all those decisions wouldn't just fall on him. He would have people advocating against him and make sure everything would flow throughly. Do I fault George Lucas for his director choices regarding the prequel trilogy? In a way, yes, because I know what could have been better.
So, Ethan, tell me specifically, in your words, what you liked about The Phantom Menace, just that one film.
I know I'm letting nostalgia and emotions get a hold of me, but everything that they did with the Darth Maul fight, in my opinion, that's better than Duel of the Fates. Everything that
That is Duel
That
of
is
Fates.
Duel of the Fates.
That's the initial use of Duel of the Fates.
Yes.
I thought that it was Anakin and
No, that was the first time they
it was
used it.
reprised.
Usually when people talk about Duel of the Fates, they talk about that.
Okay.
They talk about that
Well,
particular one.
I believe this is better than the Anakin Obi-Wan fight in the third movie. Everything that Liam Neeson, Ewan McGregor, and the actor for
Ray Park.
Ray Park.
Ray Park, everything that all three of them did to commit to this one fight scene was amazing. Every little interaction between Qui-Gon and Darth Maul. Darth Maul eventually gives over Qui-Gon, and then we see Obi-Wan and Darth Maul duke it out. We see Obi-Wan triumph over him whenever Darth Maul was standing above him over the pit. And just everything, just seeing and like remembering reacting to every little thing that happens in there. I can't.
I will.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Brady.
No. Go ahead.
All I was going to say is, if you take the emotional punch out of that whole scene, out of Phantom Menace, what else?
Emotions.
What else?
Emotions aside, that would. Still
If
be my favorite.
you take out the communion scene from The Godfather, does that diminish that movie?
Yeah,
I think
that's true.
That's a very
That's true.
we're picking out specific apples.
that's
here. Like
true.
for me, episode 1, the pod racing scene is my favorite because it's a singular focus. It's tight action. I think it's very good action. Yes, he goes, now this is pod racing and all this other stuff. Like
That's
Well, that's
but the
later
actual-
in the movie.
Right.
That's when he's in
That's
in
when
the
he's
space battle.
That's
Okay.
the
Right.
really badly shot space battle.
My bad. Yeah.
But
I think there is something to be said for a good ending, uplifting what could be considered a bad movie. I legitimately believe that.
I'd have to agree with you.
And if you
Jay.
pull that part again, if we start pulling out good parts of movies, what are we leaving in the remainder?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I will say I do agree with Ethan. When it comes to episode 1, the Duel of the Fates is the best part. Having watched it very recently, that is constantly intercut with that part is not as long as you remember. I promise you. It's over very, very quickly actually, and it's constantly being intercut with these other 3 things which are not as interesting. The infiltration of the palace is okay, but there's just not much going on, and the space battle is really badly planned out.
I actually like the battle in the open field.
The battle in the open field.
I like that.
Well, then you get all of the problem with that is just more Jar Jar Binks comedy, which is not funny, and it's very like it was an interesting idea that I think was poorly executed, but the Duel of the Fates is over really quickly, and even in that there are a lot of good parts. I think after they start fighting in that corridor that keeps getting blocked off, and from that point on, that's when it's really, really good. But even like some of the editing, and that was something that I did notice when I was rewatching these. The editing and all of the fight scenes, especially lightsaber fight scenes, is really, really weird. And there's some jarring cuts where they will just cut and go super close up to where you can't hardly see what's going on, and it takes you out of it. Like it was like, oh. That was the part I was looking forward to, and I was like, oh man, but they continually do it all through into the second one, especially. Like there's a really obvious one where Anakin's fighting Count Dooku in the second one, and they just close up on their faces, and you can't see, and all you see is just lights going in front of their face, and it's like, this is bad. This is really, really bad. But I will agree with you that Duel of the Fates is better than the Obi-Wan Anakin fight. I find the Obi-Wan Anakin fight way too long and kind of confusing. It's hard to tell what's going on a lot of times because they both have blue lightsabers and they're just flashing and flipping all over the fucking place.
I'm not confused by it. I'm not to say that to diminish you. I can see where you could, but I'm not confused by it. It's just, it keeps going. And
it's
going
very, very long. And I think that it is very overrated.
With it being overly emotional, with all the emotional baggage attached to it between the 2 characters, it does go on.
By the time I'm the end of it, I don't care about them fighting. Like I don't like that emotion has drained from me because they've gone all over this fucking planet, and like it just keeps going, and that's kind of that's a problem with it. Like I said, Revenge of the Sith is the best, but there's a lot of things in there that are not great. Like that fight is overrated, I think. The Palpatine Yoda fight is okay, but it's kind of silly because you have this super old weird man fighting this little green thing. Yoda fighting Dooku is really weird because it's this old ass man fighting this weird green thing that's all of a sudden flipping all over the place. A lot of the action, and then like it's the action is weirdly cut sometimes. The editing is very poor in a lot of places. There's good parts in some of these movies, but like there's go back to what you say, Jay, about the pod racing scene. The pod racing scene is good, except it's too fucking long. I do appreciate that it is a singular thing and it is interesting, but it's like, why did you have to do so like it was like 3 laps or something, and they
it a subjective thing then? Like is the Anakin Obi-Wan fight too long for us and it's just the right size? Or maybe for some people, maybe all they wanted episode 3 to be was a 2-hour lightsaber fight between Obi-Wan and Anakin.
But we had the lightsaber battles and Attack of the Clones. Yeah. Oh my lord.
I think a lot of it
that was
a lot of that is going to be coming down to what is your personal tolerance for these things.
Well,
I legitimately believe
if we're going to bring that up, then like there's really no point in having this discussion, because if we're going to fall back to everything is subjective. Scene to
scene, more so than anything else. Because again, how much do you have invested? How much have they have convinced you to invest in this? And how much are you enjoying the payout? This was a question I was going to broach to both of you. Mm-hmm. Ethan, you're 21. Brady, you're 33?
35.
35. My apologies. Not for being old, just for not knowing the number on your age. My apologies. Is this a generational thing? Is this generational? Is this something that for like you and me, I'm 42.
I'm 49.
49. We're kind of like, is this a generational thing where like Jody lived in a world where there wasn't even A New Hope. It wasn't even called A New Hope. It was just Star Wars.
Yeah.
I'm born in 1979, right at the turn into 1980. So I don't have enough brain, but like the first thing I remember about Star Wars is Return of the Jedi.
Yeah,
That's when I'm
the first
3
one
years
I
old.
ever
That's when I'm
watched.
3 years old. Is this something generational? Did he make a movie for a generation of fans more so than trying to make an all-time classic? And did he do that on the original trilogy as well?
I think he would, if you were to ask George Lucas, he would say that he was. But then but also what he's doing in actual practice is, having to explain all of these little minutia of where everything came from. So he's also, like I said, he would say that, yes, did this mainly for a new generation of children. But in practice, he's not doing that because it's just because he's having to go back and, this is where this came from, and this is where this came from, and this is where this came from. So he is, in a way, catering. Catering is the wrong word because he's not actually giving the people. He's giving them what he thinks the people want, I guess, would be the correct turn of phrase with that. But yeah, of course, liking this is generational because we tend to like the shit that we watched when we were kids because we're kids and kids have terrible taste. Like there's a lot of things that we didn't go back and watch as kids, but if we go back and watch now, we realize, this is really, really bad. Fuck, I used to love the Sonic the Hedgehog show with Jaleel White as Sonic, but I went back and I bought that DVD, 10, 15 years ago and went back and watched it and was like, this is unwatchable. This is terrible. And it's the same thing with shit now because all the people who are making all these memes and everything of the prequels, they were children when the prequels here, so they have all this nostalgia.
See, this is where I will slightly both argue and agree with you. I believe what George Lucas had. I believe what he had in mind when he was making the prequel trilogy. He was both catering to children to get them invested into the Star Wars franchise, in which they didn't grow up watching. They have their parents that watched it whenever it came out, but they themselves did not experience it firsthand. So he made Phantom Menace so that way they could get hooked onto it. And then he also, with the same intentions, wanted to give something to the original watchers, giving a backstory to how everything took place, how things in this trilogy would future set the wheels in motion for what happened in the original trilogy.
Do you have questions for each other?
And then I have a statement too.
You have a statement to make
after they.
Okay. If they, let's see what happens.
Joe, you can go on ahead because I guess
okay.
I'll give us
so
a chance to...
my thing I was wanting to say during the last exchange is this. A couple of things actually. One, the low hanging fruit is fucking toys.
Yes.
Okay. A lot of characters were designed, like Jar Jar Binks and lots of different vehicles were for toys.
Oh yeah.
To make money.
Of
there's not many Trade Federation toys from the prequel sequel trilogy. Another thing is that the original Star Wars movie was lightning in the bottle. They didn't know it was going to be made. The people that were on the set that weren't part of the main cast or just crew or whatnot laughed every day because they knew this wasn't going to make any money. Mm-hmm. The second, if Empire hadn't not made any money compared to the first film, we wouldn't have Star Wars.
Yes,
and then we had the Return of the Jedi. This prequel trilogy started out as a trilogy, and that's the problem.
Yes,
that's creatively that is a large undertaking for one person to take that didn't have anybody telling them you can't do that because it's a bad idea.
Mm-hmm. And I would top on that it's a trilogy that is outlined but not totally written. Like The Lord of the Rings worked because you had 3 set stories and then you could take what you wanted out of it. They took out Tom Bombadil. Fuck you. Fuck you for taking out Tom Bombadil. That's my Tom Bombadil soapbox for now, but I'm coming back
okay
off
with
of it.
that.
And I again, where did Lucas really make his real money off of the original trilogy?
Oh,
it
yeah,
was
marketing
his
the
deal with
ever-living
Kenner
shit
Toys
out of
because
it.
he kept the toy rights
because
Yeah.
they laughed and
Yeah.
said nobody's going to buy these.
Yeah.
and then you had to buy the box that didn't have the figure
toys,
in it,
yeah.
and then come back at a later date.
You got
and
a
they could give you the
certificate
toy.
saying that you're
Yep.
going to get these toys.
No, it wasn't even a certificate. The Kenner back of the cardboard, the cardboard that where the plastic blister pack would go. They just didn't put a blister pack on it. You buy the cardboard and then you bring it back in and say, "Here it is," and then they would give you your toy and they would take
Yes.
the cardboard from you.
That's exactly
That's
what
how
happened.
insane it was to get those things.
Oh yeah, merchandising for especially that.
And-
if you
and-
think about like all of the merchandising that went
Right.
into episode 1, it was out fucking rageous.
And to defend Lucas, there is one thing I do have to say about him, about this prequel sequel trilogy, and that is the fans asked for it.
Yeah.
They wanted more Star Wars, and I
Well,
gave it to them. Now
When you start your first movie with episode 4, which it didn't originally
It didn't.
thing, and then,
No,
then
that
they
was
changed
just
it.
that crawl,
retroactive.
yeah.
But once you start that and get people expecting that, then that's all they're gonna want. Like that's but you know
They could have never been made though.
we did
the
ask
prequels.
for it. I know I asked for it, but you know
We asked for 7, 8, and 9 too. I mean, let's
That is also true.
We wanted something to literally take the bad taste of the prequel trilogies out of our mouths,
yeah, it didn't work.
and they replaced it with dog shit.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not
So
gonna
episode 9 4-hour rant session coming.
We're gonna
one
have
day.
we're gonna have to watch it together. There's no way I'm watching it by myself. We can watch it together. There's no way I'm
not
watching
getting
it by
there
myself.
if I had that's the big that's the big hang up for me is I really don't want to watch that movie again.
Clearly, you didn't watch the whole episode 3.
I didn't get to
didn't get
episode.
through
I
two.
didn't get to episode 3. I
Yeah.
stopped at episode 2,
two,
and
yeah.
I do not regret my decision. The Northmen gave me so much joy compared to
Did
the
it give
misery.
you Anya Taylor joy?
Yeah, it did that too.
Ethan,
Okay.
quickly go ahead,
Yeah.
and then I got a question for you.
Would your opinions on the prequel trilogy be different if they were made instead of the original trilogy? If you take the prequel trilogy and George Lucas made it in 1977, would it be the same?
There's a good possibility that it would not, because some things would be explained that that I didn't think needed to be explained, but I would go into it being explained. It's but it's really hard to really put myself in the mindset. I think a lot of the, I'll be honest, I think a lot of the what's the word? Damn. The
Are you talking
the
about
metaphoricals that we're putting forward are very hard, because you can't really
It's not
take
really
yourself-
feasible
it-
to think about
can't
the
really
world
take
outside
It's
yourself
the
out of
argument
that.
again. You have to argue from a negative. You have to argue
Right.
a world
Yeah.
that doesn't exist.
Okay.
But I don't. I think I would probably like them, but then as I grew up and went, because I was not super old when the prequel trilogy came out, and I thought that they were pretty good because it was more fucking Star Wars. But as I've gotten older, I've realized these are not good movies, and I don't want to watch.
I want to
them anymore.
piggyback off of what Brady said earlier and then what he's saying now. There is plenty of shit that I watched when I was a kid that I had nostalgia glasses for until I was in my early 20s, maybe mid 20s, and then go back and watch it, and it's not good anymore.
Yeah.
I think that applies to everything,
Yeah, and
including the prequels.
That's the crux of my argument, is that it's okay if you like it, but they're objectively bad. But it's not a bad thing to like objectively bad things. That's my opinion on it. So.
Okay.
Any other questions the two of you have for one another?
I do not have anything else.
Favorite scene from Attack of the Clones, Ethan?
Favorite scene from Attack of the Clones? The scene where Obi-Wan and Anakin are chasing the bounty hunter.
The one on Camino?
Yes.
Okay.
Oof, that's. I think one of the big problems with there's not really I can say I can pick out something good from episode 1. I can pick out a lot of good things from episode 3. Even though a big problem that I have in episode 3 is that a lot of the people that characters that were created and were really badass in the Clone Wars original cartoon from Genndy Tartakovsky went out like absolute bitches. Mainly Grievous and Mace Windu. but there's not like that's a. So Lucas, a lot of what he wanted to do with this new trilogy was technology wise. You know, it's kind of like James Cameron with Avatar. Episode 2 was the first all digital movie. It was shot completely digitally, and it was shot with almost entirely green screens. In fact, a fun fact, because the camera that they were using was so new, it had this like big generator thing or something that made a whole lot of noise. Every single piece of dialogue in episode 2 is ADR'd, meaning that it was put in at a later date because you could not hear what was actually being said on set. The use of CGI in this is not all throughout all three trilogies. Everything looks so damn fake, especially in the second movie. The second movie is really bad about this. And that original trilogy felt so lived in, and everything felt like it existed in the real world.
It was all practical.
Because it was all practical. But all of the CGI just looks so, like, everything just looks so fake. It looks like Obi-Wan is not really grabbed onto that droid that's flying through Coruscant. It looks like he's just hanging there in front of a green screen, which he really is. The CGI in a lot of places looks like something from movies that are 5 years older than the movie. Mm-hmm. And I mean, like Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park came out in 93, 94, 93, and the CGI looks just the exact same amount.
Spielberg was smart though with the CGI and that
it was a blend.
It was
a blend.
It was a blend of things, but also the T-Rex is normally in the dark. Mm-hmm. And the end where the T-Rex is in the light, it's not like you're looking directly into the eye of the T-Rex. The T-Rex is far away, so you can hide and mask.
And I'm not shitting on Jurassic Park. Those are phenomenal. That first movie is phenomenal.
If anything,
and the special effects are phenomenal.
I'm
thinking about
his
like
use of his ability to use special effects.
Like think of the Brontosaurus. Like it doesn't really hold up, but you excuse that because
the Raptors.
It's a super. I think the Raptors hold up a little bit better.
Yeah,
but the Brontosaurus is like that you see in the beginning is not great. But it's also was a movie from 1993.
Right.
Mm-hmm. These movies were shot, half a decade later or more, and they still have this same
Phantom Menace
quality.
Came out in 99.
Yeah, Phantom Menace came out in 99. I think it was like 2001 or
2001.
It was 99, 2002, and 2005.
Yeah.
It was the same 3-year gaps that the original trilogy had.
Yeah, they still have this same quality. So like he's trying to do all these things with technology, but he's doing it poorly, and it's like, oh man, like especially like when Obi-Wan in the second one goes to Kamino, like everything looks so fake.
It's all shiny.
See, for me,
really
it's
bad.
not that much that it looks fake. It looks too clean.
It's very shiny.
That's the thing. Like the
so
original trilogy was very lived in. Like you felt
yeah.
like everything existed because there was dirt and shit everywhere, and there's not like even on Tatooine, everything looks so clean, and that's not how that should look.
That is probably, if I could say anything good about 7, 8, and 9, is that when the practical effects are being used, they look really good.
They do use some practical effects.
Wait a minute, a light bulb just went off. So you just said that the lines from Attack of the Clones are all 80-yard. Is that the reason why? Like, I would be annoyed as fuck to have gone through months of doing all of this acting to be called back in later, say, hey, so that generator, he totally muffled out everybody's voices. Everybody's got to 80-yard this again. So now, in addition to saying these lines, you have to say them like you said them on the set while watching the film play so you can match your mouth movements to the mouth movements that you're making there so that the sound has the same contour. I would have shot Lucas. I would have shot George Lucas.
I'll be honest, I don't.
Not to kill him. I would have shot him in the ass one time. He wasn't going to war anymore, but oh my God.
The fleshy part of the thigh. That's a Sopranos reference.
There you go.
I don't know. I didn't read that much into it. I just read that little short anecdote.
It just came to mind.
It's possible, but I don't think that even excuses it because, okay, well, you've sacrificed technology for actually quality of your movie. You've made your movie actively worse in one way to try and make it better visually, and it's still not great visually. Yeah.
So, any closing statements from either of you?
Which one of us went first?
you went first. I'll go first with the closing.
Are you that old, man? Jesus God!
I forgot. We have had a long discussion.
You went first.
Did you not hear me talk about my mental breakdown? I am not mentally stable at this moment.
Okay,
because of Star Wars.
Because of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Ethan, have at.
So, I can definitely see where you Brady have come to this decision. I can also see how Jay and how Jody stands on their personal opinions on the prequel trilogy, and I want to put emphasis on that personal opinions. Like we can exclude, even if we do exclude personal opinions, we can still. Both of us still came to a very somewhat civilized debate on whether or not on both of our opinions on this. And I do respect your opinions on it.
Yes. I would like to say I agree. I respect your opinions on it as well. Like I said in the beginning, you can like a movie even if it's bad. It is okay to do that. I kind of want to talk about prequels as my closing thing. So prequels for the most part don't really work because people don't particularly care where the stuff that I love comes from. I just want to see the stuff. That's a
Patton Oswalt
reference. I don't want to seem like, I'm not giving credit where credit is due. Nobody wants to. The mystique of a lot of things were taken out with the prequel trilogy. Like, the Force was this mysterious thing, but now there's bugs in your blood that attune you to the Force, and even Lucas knew that was a bad idea because he didn't mention it in 2 and 3, just in 1.
He mentions it in 3.
At
the opera scene.
Yeah, like he mentions it very rarely. Like he doesn't put as much emphasis on it. Nobody wants to see really badass, cool Darth Vader, probably one of the best villains ever created. Like a video I watched, he's one of the few villains that actually passed like the silhouette test where you can see him in silhouette and you instantly know who that is. Nobody wants to see him as a whiny kid. So that's the problem with prequels. Now, there is an interesting thing, a good thing that you can do with prequels in that everybody knows, the story at point A or at point B, I mean, but you go back in time and you present a time point in point A that is wildly different than the status quo is wildly different than what you knew it was. Characters are in different places. These different things are happening. Things that you thought were pretty set in stone aren't anymore. A good example of this is Spartacus, Gods of the Arena. This is a prequel show that actually did that. And then the whole reason that you're watching the prequel is to see, well, what happens to get us to that point that we already know. I think that's when a prequel succeeds. This one did not do that. This was hung up on the minutia of we have to explain where C-3PO came from. We have to explain where R2-D2 came from. We have to explain Chewbacca. We have to explain this, that, and the other thing. And it connected all these things that weren't originally connected, and it made this huge, expansive universe. It shrunk it down, and that continued into the sequel trilogy where they continued shrinking things down and connecting everything until it was this very tiny ball, when instead you could have had this huge, expansive world. Lucas set out, I believe, in this prequel trilogy to try and talk about the fall of an empire and the fall of the Republic being kind of like the fall of an empire, and the rise of a fascist government and everything. But he just did it poorly and heavy-handedly. Like, he did things like, okay, we want to show that the Jedi Knights the Order of the Jedi are failing and they're not good and they're weak and effective, but then we also really have to show that they're really cool all the time. So there are things that he did that really shrank the world or the universe that he created that were not as effective. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got.
Nobody died.
No. Yeah. I think we had a very civil discussion.
Yes. So the winner gets to put sugar in the gas tank of the other one. So who won? You don't get to decide. Ladies and gentlemen, travelers on the omnibus at gmail.com. Write in with how you feel about the bus fight, the format, what was said here today. Do you believe Ethan? Do you believe Brady? Do you think Jody should have just nut-cutted somebody during the show? It would have been great.
I'm really hoping that they decide that we have a tie and none of us have to have sugar. And
No, if it's a tie, both of you get sugar in your gas tanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, Bray Davis did not agree to that particular stipulation.
It's a bus fight.
Ethan
so
Skinner
that
is also among the
that's
same
not going to
decision.
happen
It's a
because I kind of have to have my,
no one's gonna put no one's gonna put sugar in your gas tank. It was just a fun thing.
Yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
Like,
do you think that I did not know that?
But why you got to need a disclaimer?
But at the same time, it's you, Jay. We don't know
because
I don't know. I don't put terrible things in other people's gas tanks. I put terrible things in me.
You mean like these?
Okay, that's
these extremely hot Bean Boozled jelly beans.
Yeah,
They
I
were
ate.
weird innuendo.
Yeah, they had the super hot Bean Boozled beans, and everyone's like, "Oh, I just have one. I'll just have one." I just downed like 8 of them.
I passed the box at him. He was like, "You fool."
Yeah, you fool. And then I just ate 8 of them, and then everyone was like, "Oh God!" And they are hot. They are legitimately hot.
Yeah.
I have done the 1 chip challenge. I live in South Mississippi, where even our milk has hot sauce in it. It is what it is. Now, for my next trick tonight, I'm going to eat a sour streamers from Haribo and pair it with some soy sauce, because that's what we've got at the table, and that's how we're going to leave out tonight. But before we leave out tonight, the bus has to get to the station, and there it is. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for showing up this week. More importantly, thank you to Greg Spanier and the entire crew at McNarb Gaming in Goshen, Mississippi, for providing us with this wonderful studio space where we can entertain, hopefully, and inform, also, hopefully, our studio audience. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Greg.
Thanks for
There
having
you go.
Silence Your Cell Phones is a podcast hosted by our good friends Jared Hubbard and Kevin Shelton.
Yay.
Because I'm the only one that can remember their names.
There you go.
They talk about TV shows and movies that you should and should not watch. They have a weekly show on YouTube, I believe Wednesdays or whenever they feel like it.
Whenever they want to.
Again, that is Silence Your Cell Phones.
I think the last live show was on Maverick. So if you want to get some spoilery or non-spoilery stuff on Maverick, check those guys out.
Yes.
Cool. Fearology is a podcast hosted by JL Kite, who is an associate of Jody Kite. Who
I know
is-
that guy somewhere.
Yeah, who is a...
Is he Earth 616, Jody?
I think he's
you
more
keep
like
saying that. 616 is the original universe, right?
Yeah, we're not the original universe.
Okay. We are in the
That's why
middle.
Mandela effect.
That's why
is
we're
in-
called the Travelers.
Yeah, okay.
Oh my God, he linked it to our motif.
Oh, man.
That's a good job. You get to live to this week, Ethan.
Oh, that's great.
Okay.
Anyway, Fearology is a podcast about horror where JL Kite takes us through his experiences with horror. I don't know when a new episode is coming out. Jody, have you heard about anything about when a new episode is coming out?
I think maybe soon. We'll see.
Okay, all right.
That's very ominous.
Check that
just
out
like a
anywhere,
Fearology should be.
anywhere podcaster.
It's on Anchor and Spotify.
Yeah, most places that
Yeah.
podcasts are done.
Yep.
Whiskey and Wrestling is a
Whiskey
show,
and Wrestling East Coast.
is a show
We're Whiskey and Wrestling West Coast.
about whiskey and or wrestling. Our buddies Michael Hill and Jason Holder talk about wrestling. They have a whiskey drink of the day typically.
We're not starting that again. We did it once. It worked flawlessly.
He's mentioning Tub Thumper from,
Yeah, we're not-
from Chumbawamba.
Yeah.
When he said
See
whiskey drink,
previous-
I'm
previous
fighting.
episode.
I'm still fighting it.
If you tune in to an episode or two back, you actually might hear me and Brady on that episode, specifically talking
Should
about
be their most
wrestling.
previous episode. Yeah, we did a little invasion angle, and
Yeah.
we
I was on there a week before, and then Brady joined me a week after, and like soon it'll be 3 of us on there,
Yeah,
and
we're-
4.
we're like a fungus. We just like multiply.
I'm not allowed on there because I breathe curse words.
If
That
I
is
find
true.
myself awake on a Sunday afternoon,
That is true.
Hey, this last time, it was no Jody said the curse word this time. The time before it was Holder.
The one before was me. So they have to.
They're breaking their own rules.
They're PG-13.
Did he turn heel? Oh my
Yeah,
God.
Totally.
Jay, you can finally join them.
Oh my God.
Before we go on, I want to say, Jay, please don't drink straight soy sauce because
Yeah.
it's like super super high in salt content, and it's not made to be
Like how super high?
Like it will. Like if
I
you drink
don't know.
enough of it, it will kill
I
you.
don't know. Let's find out.
Okay, he's looking at.
I
the
don't
thing
know
here.
exactly how much, but I know it doesn't take a whole lot because it's almost
Well,
pure
we got to
salt.
keep up this whole like me drinking weird things thing,
Okay,
right?
fine.
It doesn't state.
It
Wait, I
doesn't
don't
say.
have to do it.
No.
No.
You told me I had to do it because
I
No
did
one
not.
said.
You know, Brady was like, "Look, the chicks are really digging this." Like, and we got
Chicks?
Yeah, the chicks,
What chicks are you referring to?
birds,
Oh,
chickens,
chickens.
The chickens are
Who
like
has chickens?
Who's going
Brady
chicken
talks
hunting?
to them.
I think the
Brady talks to them.
just-
He was
he talks
born
to
in
the chickens?
He was born in Middle
Jesus
Mississippi,
Christ.
so he speaks English
And chicken.
and chicken.
I
Brady
was
had-
not born in Middle Mississippi. Perry County is not Middle Mississippi.
Just
Why,
from-
is it okay? Okay, my
Perry
geography
County is
up.
like maybe 2 or 3 counties up.
Okay, from so it's North Mississippi.
No,
I
from
just-
here.
Oh, from here.
I
okay.
just want
It's
to
like
let
an
Ethan.
hour and a half.
I want to let Ethan know before we head out. If you want to write a successful science fiction trilogy, you got to remember to put in for the kids now. The kids are interested in this. Political corruption and trade federations.
Yes,
And
taxation.
toys and
You have to-
toys
You have
and
to
toys.
constantly be talking about.
You have to have
taxation.
toys and trade federations. That's what the kids are wanting right now.
Yeah. That's what's cool.
mean,
that's
look
what's in. We're hip.
I mean,
we know
look at
what's.
our last episode about toys and cartoons.
Oh,
Good reference.
Plug for the last
Yeah.
episode.
Oh wow,
You might be able to. You might be able to win some toys on a game show.
Oh,
Oh.
Tune in next time when we go game showing.
Oh shit, we are doing that next time.
Yep.
Yeah.
that's we gotta
Oh,
figure
I have
that
to do
out.
more work.
We gotta figure that shit out.
I did all of this work. All of this fucking work for this bullshit.
I see these pages.
And you presented a cogent, very very powerful.
Very nice
I don't wanna
you
do
did,
dissertation.
you
more
did a very
work.
good job. You don't have.
You did do a good job, Brady.
You,
You did.
you
I
just
think I
take-
want to go on Fiverr and like outsource whatever.
All
I'm
right,
supposed
master
to do.
debaters.
don't do that. Last time I went on Fiverr, I got something that was just weird.
Oh,
Ugh.
speaking of weird,
You're Jody Kite,
yeah,
and
totally.
that's Ethan
Yeah.
Skinner,
And
and that's
he's-
Brady Davis.
You're James McCarthy.
Oh shit! So good morning, good afternoon,
okay.
good
I
evening,
didn't
and
have
good
to-
night. Bye.
Bye.